Well, it's absolutely a pleasure to welcome everyone back to Bev's Open House. And today I am just really excited to have Miss Dionne Baux, and she is the Director of Urban Programs with Main Streets, has a tremendous history in terms of community development, revitalization, community stakeholder engagement. But I think the key I would emphasize is what Dionne has really impressed upon me is that you're working with community. You're not doing things for community. So, Dionne, tell us about yourself and the work that you do,
Sure.
and just you take it away. It's all about you.
Well, Dr. Scott, I have to first say it was such an honor when you invited me to be a part of Bev's Open House and to have a conversation with you. I've been working in this field of community development for about 25 years, kind of fell into it a little bit where I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. I was studying communications as an undergrad and thought that I was going to be either an NPR radio reporter or some type of news anchor, right? But really, my focus has always been telling the true story of African Americans, of gay and lesbian people, of, Latinx communities, communities that have been underrepresented in the news, underrepresented in the media. So that's like where I was coming from this work that, maybe I'll end up there. Then I get this fantastic internship with a Latinx woman that I'll never forget, Gloria Castillo. And as a part of that work, I was really, the city of Chicago at the time was being sued by majority building owners for their minority women-owned business set-aside program. And Gloria happened to be on then Mayor Daley's task force to help actually develop a narrowly tailored program to save Chicago's MWBE program. So I started doing this research and really learning a lot more about minority builders, women-owned businesses, and minority business enterprises. And my father, just to give a little bit of background on myself, my father worked in the construction trades. So, I studied undergrad at, at University of Illinois at Chicago, and the liberal arts department. So everyone pretty much loves each other, right? I'm talking to my father about constructions and minority and women-owned business participation, and he's telling me, no, it doesn't work the way you think it works. We have to often fight to be included on jobs, even as workers that are in a union. Mm-hmm. So it made me start thinking about this work from a very different perspective, that if there are laws in place or policy in place that is ensuring that minority women-owned businesses have a place and the opportunity to compete on publicly funded programs, how can I be a part of that? So as an intern, I was trying to help, really find, I think, a justifiable case of why the city of Chicago wanted to keep the program, how they could narrowly tailor the program to ensure that it was really reaching minority and women-owned businesses. So that's like where I fell into the work of community development. So it started to hit home. This was in my, I would say, mid-20s. It really started to hit home a little bit more that you need more advocates that are working in these spaces and understand how to have these conversations. Mm-hmm. And from there, things just continued to kick off. I ended up going over to the city of Chicago. That's where you talk about the tax increment financing. I, was the good face with TIF, because TIF does not always have a really good face. And as it relates to how cities are distributing TIF dollars. So for often, large cities sometimes really, I would say, distribute a lot of their funds toward larger developers and not ensuring that existing residents or property owners get a chance to access the TIF dollars. And so why I say I was the good face is that I was administering the city's neighborhood improvement program, which really went toward assisting existing homeowners who owned 1 to 4 flat properties be able to rehab their exterior facades or get a new roof. This was like TIF dollars in these neighborhoods that residents could actually access.
It's fascinating that whole, how your history, how you've kind of gone through, and then to be able to, so in the neighborhood work, you've gotten the public sector the private sector, the nonprofit sector, and this real estate development world that is really not usual for many. Okay, I got to.
That's right.
You went on to what worked with LISC. Okay, and did some really amazing things there. I really want to hear about this leadership program that you started, and then I think you were the first one on the Smart Communities initiative. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, Dionne.
Absolutely, Dr. Scott. It's so hard to like talk about yourself when someone else is bringing those things up. You're like, wow, I did work on those things. Yeah. So when I transitioned over to LISC Chicago, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, Chicago, from the city of Chicago, they were administering the Smart Communities program. And the Smart Communities program actually was a broadband technology opportunity program funded out of the Obama administration. So these were stimulus dollars that were coming out. And so these stimulus dollars really for BTOP, also known as Smart Communities, was focusing on ensuring that Black and Brown communities and 5 communities in Chicago had access to the internet, but not access to the internet to go on and Facebook yourself to death or Instagram yourself to death, but really understand how to be civically engaged, right? How to connect with your local politicians, how to send letters to your senators, how to actually really start telling a compelling story about your community from the community's perspective. So we developed a number of initiatives. So Smart Communities had 5 initiatives that were underneath it. We worked with youth. That was called our Digital Youth Summer Jobs Program, really teaching youth how to effectively use the internet. Then there were 2 other components, the Family Net Center. The Family Net Center really was co-located in one of our workforce agencies. LISC calls them Center for Working Families. But the community that I think really took this portal concept and started taking back the messaging of their community themselves was the Inglewood portal. So now, you used to be able to you would Google Inglewood and tell you about the latest shooting, the latest whatever, crime that may have happened, because we know blood and crime leads and on the news outlet. However, this portal now, when you Google Inglewood, you're going to find good in Inglewood. You're going to find a lot of the different events that they're putting on in Inglewood. You're going to learn about the assets that are in that community. So they took back the messaging of what the external people thought about their community and really start pushing out the real message, right? We know that, our communities are sometimes perceived a bit worse than what they actually are.
Yeah.
I could walk in those communities and likely nothing will happen to me. But the way that the news portrays it, it's like there's nothing there. It's like fear, fear, fear. And so I would say that those communities really, really did a great job of taking that on. And so Smart Communities actually, I would say, still lives on in many of these communities because they're still using the portal. So I just thought that was fantastic. And then the Leadership Institute. Oh my God, you talk about the Business District Leadership Program. That I think was something that I developed, that I felt really, really comfortable with and proud of. So I created the Business District Leadership Program because I realized that certain communities either had access, had relationships, had incentives that they were able to bring very quickly to their communities, where others, although doing the same type of services, didn't have the same level of access. So the Business District Leadership Program was a 9-month program with a group of 20 cohort members from across the city. So I pulled folks from all different regions in the city because we really wanted to get a different perspective from north side, south side, west side, east side. We wanted to bring them all in so they could learn from each other, as well as thinking about people who have been doing this work for a very long time. Some folks have been doing this work for 20 years. Some people have been doing this work for 1 year. But to bring them all in a room to, one, build a network, but as well as, like I said, even the playing field. So if you need to pick up the phone to call someone to get something done in your corridor, you know who to call. And so at the end of the program, each one of the managers had to submit like a practicum or, some type of program, a project at the end that they worked on for the 9 months that they participated in the program, utilizing the skills that we showed them. And it was just amazing. So I did that for 2 years. And that's actually how I found the National Main Street Center, because I was constantly connecting these corridor managers to resources, and Main Street popped up. And I was like, oh my God, this is an organization that's actually leading economic development. They have been doing it for 40 years. And they're based here in Chicago. How can I get my communities to start working with Main Street? And, the story is Main Street offered somebody a job, Dionne. And I took the job. And then, they built out this program called Urban Maine. It was really to ensure that more communities and bigger cities were getting access to this really proven approach that had been working for 40 years, right? So if you're familiar with Main Street at all, we're a subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. So, we're a part of this mega institution that so many people know. We were established, like I said, 40 years ago to really ensure that, each commercial corridor goes through a cycle. And so in the late 70s, the cycle was the creation of malls and big boxes, right? And people were leaving the traditional neighborhood commercial district where they would go to their butcher or they would go get their neighborhood services that they needed, as well as see their friends, right? You might go to the local coffee shop, see your friend on the corridor. So in the 70s and 80s, malls were starting to replace these neighborhood commercial districts. And that was the reason that Main Street was created, to bring back attention to the corridors. Because you know what those corridors got? People. Beautiful architectural buildings, cultural history. Right. So how do we, and connectivity to your neighbors. So that's why Main Street was created. And then fast forward, now 40 years, or 36 years, I've been there for 4 years. They really, I would give great credit to our leadership that we really wanted to expand this methodology to more bigger cities. We're already working in Boston and DC, but some other cities may not always and couldn't see themselves in a Main Street approach. And so we created the Urban Maine program. And they, I think National Main Street Center made a smart hire by hiring someone that that had philanthropic experience, working with big city government, had an experience building capacity of local managers, and had connectivity to Black and Brown communities.
You said so much about the relationships, but the importance of a sense of place and identity. Okay, you're exactly right. We went to all these big box and all of that, but what are people really thirsting for, and what is it that we've rather lost? Okay, is this whole sense of place, identity, culture, and all of that. And that's the stuff that really is the glue of what brings and keeps people together. So now I'm gonna pivot just a minute, because this is one of the things that I think excited us both about that doggone Obai, Olatunji, and equity. When this young man called me on the telephone about 2.5 years ago, was on a Saturday, and I've had this, man, you really need to talk to this young man in Chicago, and I was laughing because I'm supposed to be going to semi-retirement, and so I'm talking, but I'm ready to, mommy, I'm ready to listen and be of whatever assistance I can be. He got me on that telephone, and it was one of those moments where I was really feeling, it wasn't weak. It was, and I was saying, if I heard one more person, I said, everybody out there talking about a sustainable city. I hear people talk about smart cities, but I haven't heard anybody out there trying to claim that they want to be the most equitable city. Right? So when he started talking and connecting the dots, and so could you talk a little bit about about equiticity and how you can bring your work and what is this movement all about? Because I think it's absolutely, I can't say enough about leadership and vision in this area.
Absolutely. I mean, very similar to you, Dr. Scott. When Obi called, I was like, yeah, sure. What do you need? What do you need? So we met each other when I was at LIST Chicago, administering the Business District Leadership Program. And that, at the time, he was the CEO of Slow Roll Chicago. And so I became very interested in the slow roll movement, really taking the streets back and giving it to the people, but as well as having the people understand what's in your community. So I sponsored a couple of rides for slow roll that were a part of the Business District Leadership Program to really highlight the businesses that were in those commercial corridors, have people come to the communities. I remember being on one ride. It was so funny. I think we were in Bronzeville. And someone was like, oh my God, the boulevard is just beautiful and the trees. And I was like, well, where do you think you are? I mean, come on. Yeah, I mean, you're on the south side, but we got trees. So it was just really a eye-opening experience to be on those rides and have people actually, things that I knew. I was originally born, I'm a native Chicagoan, born in Chicago, grew up in the western suburbs. So very familiar with many of the neighborhoods here, and my work has taken me into the 77 neighborhoods. But it was really interesting to see how many people did not know what were in these neighborhoods. So when Obi moved from slow roll to create equiticity, and I was just like, what's this? Like, now, what are we doing? It's about an equitable city and a racial equitable movement, and it's about transportation. It's about, making certain that we have access. And so I was like, I want to be involved with whatever this is. I mean, because, this does align with my work, but personally, I want to be associated to things that aligns with me personally. And, it really started for me understanding the transportation piece, right? Yeah. And ensuring that transportation is equitable. And that means it could be biking. It could be how we how we ride the bus, how we ride the train. Is there enough access in our community? So we started seeing, and, Obi got me when he was like, yeah, I think we're going to sue the city of Chicago. Because they were, their enforcement policies were truly enforcing on only Black and brown communities. And so how can you enforce, for example, bike lanes, and you're saying somebody is riding on the sidewalk, but it's dangerous for me to ride in the street because there aren't any bike lanes in my community. Right. And if I happen to be in a Black or brown community, the likelihood of seeing those bike lanes begin to decrease. And so police are ticketing these people that this may be their only form of transportation, right? This could be their only form of transportation, but they're getting a ticket because they're now riding on the sidewalk where it would be just way too dangerous for them to, ride in the streets. Right. So when he said that, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm in. Whatever I can do to be a part of a movement that is ensuring that no matter what your socioeconomic level is, no matter what your racial background is, you're getting the same services and resources as everyone across the board.
Yeah, yep. It's the thing, exactly what you're saying. And I tell people, I say, we have to bring the same intentionality and focus to equity, and equity is not sameness. Okay, and I'm saying it is not, and it changes. It's not like the work is ever done. It changes because communities change. Okay,
that's right.
And so it has to be absolutely a part of your DNA that is, and you have to center your focus on what is right for people. Okay, in the work that you do from the beginning. It's not stuff that you can easily do as catch up. Now, let me ask you this. For young people that are out there now, you talked about, you said, well, you know what, I kind of fell into it. Okay, and I'm saying, what advice would you give them from a career standpoint? How they make their decision in life about what they want to do? What would you say to them? What would you say? Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna come at this as a mother, right? I have two children, a 25-year-old and a 22-year-old, as well as a 12-year-old. had 3 children. So out of those children, I have made them, Dr. Scott, we talked about this, making those children go to community-wide meetings. If we needed to go out and do voters registration, they may have been out there with me. So at the very beginning, because of the household that I was raising them in, they were a little more civically engaged. What I would suggest to young people, if you don't have a mother like me that's pushing you to be civically engaged all the time, you need to figure out what is of value to you, what is so important to you. As I said, I fell into this. And as I got, as I was in college, there were things that were gearing me toward equity, but at that time it was mass media, right? I was really wanted to ensure that people of color were represented properly. So I found it in college. For me, I found it in college. And maybe I was a little civically engaged all the time. I guess I was in student council when I was in high school. So those were things that were interesting to me. But these young people need to just start trying out things, either volunteering at a local event, volunteering at a local organization. I'm always looking for young people to come work with me, even if that means social media. If you just want to do social media, you want to come to one of the public meetings just to see how all of this works. Start getting involved, because sometimes I don't think they understand how influential their voices are. Just at the young millennials that I'm seeing that are in the Chicago area that are like blowing up from being on WVON. We had one run for mayor. Jamal from My Block, My Hood. You're just seeing like these young people are just constantly giving back.
And if you can find what your passion is, and be able to unify your passion and your purpose, okay? That's right. Oftentimes, that whole thing that you were saying about you need to, the more you can expose yourself to what's out there, okay? Because I didn't even think I ended up in political science. I started out in psychology, okay? You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Who would ever have thought that evolution would wind up taking place? But the more you expose yourself to what the different possibilities are, and then you can kind of settle in on, well, this is where, and then I think for all of us along our lives, okay, that whole thing of giving back and is, and knowing how to be a mentor, and then how to be a coach, and how to be a sponsor, okay, you know what I'm saying? Exactly, you mentoring. But then when you get to the point, we need to also, that whole thing in terms of leadership development that you were doing is so that we can see how that next generation, that succession planning is coming. And then that means that we have to be comfortable to step away from the table so that other people can sit at the table. Okay. And
that's right.
That's not always an easy thing to do, but that's all part of that. It's all part of that generational, that process. I tell you.
Don't you see that happening now, though, like at the political level, and the number of people that just have not stepped to the side? Because I think about it, I was talking about this to someone, and I have some aspirations of one day maybe running for political office. But I said, who in Illinois, and maybe folks just don't know, but who in Illinois is actually reaching back to mentor a new group of politicians, right? That can come in, have new, fresh, innovative ideas. That's what we have to continue to do. And so understanding that is a constant learning process. I really love that you mentioned that. You maybe didn't say it that way, but it's just, we're always learning and evolving, right? And understanding what our role should be. And so at this point, yes, I am serving as a mentor or providing internships for young people. But, there needs to be a time where, well, who am I? Who's mentoring me, right? Who's guiding me to the next level? And it just has to continue and be that cycle.
And so it does mean that you got to step back and be able to be the coach and not feel badly that, that you're not at the, you don't have to feel like I got to be the one that's right there at that table. Okay. And I'm saying,
absolutely. I totally agree with that. I look at the young 20, 30-year-olds and some 40-year-olds that are coming up, right? And, you know, some of these young people are Harvard trained. Some of these young people, I mean, they're just brilliant.
Yeah.
So how do I step aside to say, look, brilliance that I see, I want to bring you to this meeting with me, or, hey, can you present? And you know how I do that, Dr. Scott, is, you know, since I have the platform with the National Main Street Center, when we're normally like, you know, pre-COVID, we host a conference every year. We host a conference. I reach out to those innovative people and say, can you present at our conference? I'd love to see you. More people need to hear about the fantastic work that you're leading, because you're amazing. You're amazing. The only way that we all are smart is surrounding ourselves with these very smart people, because we don't have all the ideas.
That is absolutely. And you know what? And I had a person that I worked for at one time years ago. And he said the mark of a really unbelievable leader is not just what you leave behind, but it's who you leave behind. And
I love that.
Resonated. My grandmother used to say, you know, she said, put a pin in it. You know, I'm gonna remember that. Okay. And I never shall forget when I heard him. He was the chairman of our board, and I heard him talking about, you know, and I said, that's the truth. And so, but you have to think about intentionality around that development. And that doesn't mean it's fancy all the time, fancy stuff. The point you were making, you're the one who did the work on this, because, you know, we got such smart young people, we got such smart people, but the experience, and they got the smarts, but that experience and that exposure that comes from being at the table, being in the room. And so I would just challenge all of us to say, and it happens for 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Say, now what am I doing to help bring the next one along? If they're the ones that actually worked on the project, what a simple thing. Instead of it being some training thing you send them to, let them be the one that presents at the board of directors, so that and the community gets the opportunity to see what work they've done, how they, you know, you feel good about what you're doing and all that. And so all of those pieces coming together. But if we're talking about it, we're thinking about it, and we're doing it, there's no God juniors out there. But if our aspiration is to really, really develop that next group, and if we all try to do the pieces that we can, I think we get there. We get there. So,
I agree.
Now, what haven't I asked you about? This is not going to be our last conversation. What haven't I asked you to say? I gotta leave this one with them. Okay.
You know what? I think this has been a great conversation. I think we've turned it wind it down like a windy word, right? To start out from how I got here, how I got to eclecticity, and how we can really, 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 really charge and lead that next generation of leaders. I think if we could leave it there, Dr. Scott, that's what we're looking for. That next group of leaders, right? I think that's who we're looking for. I think that's what you forgot to ask me, the self-esteem issue. Right? We need that. We need that often as a culture, because you're right. What has been pushed into us has not always been good. It's those words: minority, disadvantage, not having opportunities, under-resourced. All of those words are just saying that you starting out with nothing. Like you don't have anything.
But we have ourselves, we have our culture, we have our and so those are the things that, oh my God, we just have to fight against, because even when people mean well, insidiously, all of that stuff, okay, is like it puts cellophane paper over you, okay? And I'm saying, and we gotta fight out of it, okay? And I'm saying, so that's all. We in the punching out mode. That's exactly so.
I love it. I love it.
Dionne, thank you so much. It has been
absolutely
an honor.
The honor is all mine. Thank you, Dr. Scott.
Okay, thank you. God bless. Have a good one. Bye-bye.